I heartily welcome all of you to the virtual launch party, I should say, on the 12th of December 2020. Yes, mark this date. It's the new launch of Is Pharmacology Difficult Podcast. I'm your host, Dr Radhika Vijay, MBBS MD Pharmacology. I belong to Buccheim, Rajasthan, India. And this is podcast where I will give you tips, methods, strategies, and a lot of ideas as to how to learn better, understand better, and make your concepts and basics clear, simplified. If you really find, and if there's a question hovering in your minds, is pharmacology difficult? So this is the launch episode, the first episode of my podcast, which I've actually reinvented with a lot of new ideas. And do you know what is the history of pharmacology? Do you have any idea about the historical aspect? Do you? Do you know what is pharmacology? Well, all these questions gonna be answered in today's episode. So let's get started. History is actually history. Prehistorically, people were using drugs, they were using plants, herbs for the normal cure of their day-to-day ailments, diseases. But, of all these substances they were using, not all were useful, though few have still been in use till date. But most of them were really harmful and toxic. Now, there was a fixed school of thought that diseases were caused in the human beings by excess of bile and blood. Well, it was not a fixed thought. Today we can call it a superstition, rightly, but that time it was a really belief. And if weapon leads to wound, then you can really apply salve to it. Would you really do that today? I'm sure you won't. But that was the real fixed school of thought that time. And you know what happened? Gradually, eventually, observations, experimental, scientific approach, it really clouded the mere theoretical schools of thought. Now, in the British continent, experiments were started on traditional medicine. And this really led to the evolution of precursor literature in the subject pharmacology. And this, whatever literature it was, a sort of a very old book you can call, it was named as Materia medica. Yes, it's a golden name, Materia medica, which included a lot of methods and sciences of drug preparation, drug use. But still, there was something lacking. It was not up to the mark. And what was lacking was the lack of purifying agents, the lack of hypothesis testing. It really couldn't give a sound proof evidence, and people really couldn't understand the basic mechanism of action and the true nature of the crude drugs that were used. So a lot of work had to be done in this particular direction. Now, who did this work? Yes, who did this work? Pioneers to develop the methods for the study of drug effects. It was done in the 18th and 19th century by Francois Magendie. And yes, one of his students was also there with him. His name was Claude Bernard. They did several experiments in experimental pharmacology and the subject pharmacology. And there were other people also. One person, Rudolf Buccheim, his name was glorified when he found the first pharmacology laboratory in his own home. Yes, that really sounds weird, but he did that. And he did in 1847 in Germany. Now, many other names came into being and development in this particular field, which I'm not going to list at present, else this topic gonna become, instead of a brief history, it will really become a history. Well, let's not do that. One name I want to tell you, Oswald Schiemedberg. He was titled the father of pharmacology. Yes, I will repeat it. Oswald Schiemedberg was given the title of Father of Pharmacology. And why? Because he propounded many basic fundamentals in this particular subject along with his colleagues and students also. Then further 18th, 19th, 20th century, they saw revolutionary changes underlying the mechanism of drug action. Time saw great advances with a lot of therapeutic claims. And what claims can you imagine? There was a concept of patent medicines, etc. also. And thus it leads to that pharmacology subject, it becomes the spine of the therapeutics which are done rationally. Now, this was a brief historical aspect of this particular subject, pharmacology. Whatever you start with the subject, whatever topic you start afresh, a history knowledge is very good, It really gives an outlook of how the evolution took place, because there are so sea changes from the olden era to the new ones that they really bring a lot of excitement when you are studying the subject. So knowledge of history is very important, first. Now secondly, what is pharmacology? Now break the term. Yes, break the term pharmacology in pharmakon. That is a Greek term. It means drug. And another term that comes out after breaking the term is logos, which means study or science. Now, did I say science? Now, what science is this? In broader terms, the study of substances or molecules interacting with the living systems via some of the chemical processes. By binding to the regulatory molecules, they lead to either stimulation or inhibition of the body processes. And we can also say that it is a study of how the drugs they alter the physiological biochemical functions of living organisms. Now, it is one single branch, and can you imagine, it encompasses so many biomedical sciences like biology, chemistry, physiology, biochemistry, and nonetheless to account for definitely clinical medicine. So it's a vast sea of knowledge. It covers many varied and different aspects, and it is very well used in the application of drugs. It covers the drug use, the drug effects. Well, let me give you the final definition. Yes, I'm sure you're waiting for that. In final words, a science dealing with mechanism of action, therapeutic uses, adverse effects, all in all the fate of drugs in human beings or animals, is defined as pharmacology. Now, there's something called as medical pharmacology. It is actually the science of substances, drugs, chemicals, which prevent or diagnose or they cure a disease. Okay, that's a little altered, modified version. That's not the exact definition, but you should know that. Now, I've talked so much about the historical aspect. I've talked about what is pharmacology. I'm sure one question is popping up in your brains. I've talked so much about a term called drug, and you all are wondering, what is a drug? Okay, that leaves us with the query of what is a drug? Well, that question will be answered, and it actually needs one full episode, and that episode gotta be the next one. I really hope that your initial quest of the subject, about the name of the subject, the idea, the historical aspect is resolved in this episode. For all the updated new uploads on my podcast episodes, please visit www.ispharmacologydifficult.com, where you can also sign up for a free monthly newsletter of mine. It actually contains a lot of updates about the medical sciences, drugs information, and my podcast updates. Also, you can follow me on the different social media handles like Twitter, Insta, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And they all are with the same name as Pharmacology Difficult. If you are listening for the first time, do follow me here, whatever platform you're consuming this episode. Do stay tuned. do rate and review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Yes, surely do that. It's really my heartiest request. Stay safe, stay happy, stay enlightened. Thank you.